And there's a big clump of stuff they talk about, right? Everything from, the sordid sort of whatever porn stuff's on the computer all the way to these sorts of emails, right? A giant haystack is the point I'm making. And within it, some needles. And one of the New York Post articles claims there's an email that alleges there was a 2015 meeting, between Joe Biden and an executive for Burisma, right, where Hunter Biden was on the board. So the Biden campaign said it went through the former vice president's official schedules from the time and found no official meeting. Biden, though, last year was clear. He said he's never spoken to his son about his overseas business dealings. But an email like this, if it's real, could be more significant. So how do they know whether these needles are significant or whether these are the Russian disinformation put into the haystack?
Right, exactly. And this is classic. This is very classic Russian disinformation tactic, which is to mix in things that look legitimate and maybe even are legitimate with things that are fake. And so what we'll be seeing over the next few days is more releases from the New York Post and from other outlets, I suppose. We do know that the trajectory of this is this, that in April of 2019, this laptop is dropped off at this computer repair store in Delaware. In December, somehow, the FBI takes control of it. We're not really clear from the computer store owner exactly how the FBI knew about the existence of this. And then
his soldier. The problem here is that Rudy's not a soldier. I mean, Rudy's drunk all the time, which is a big problem, and that's what makes him susceptible because his faculties are gone. He behaves crazy
as a
virtually
journalist,
all the
I
time.
have to ask you: are you sharing an opinion, or are you sharing an observation, like you've seen him drink X amount? That's the same thing an investigator would ask.
Oh, I've seen him drink to the point where he's a high school drunk. And it makes him susceptible, and he takes the information that he gets and he provides it off to the president. And simply because Rudy, who used to be considered, a real litigator, and he was considered to be America's mayor, is now really just a joke.
Yeah,
and he takes it right back to Trump, and Trump listens.
Mr. Biden, what is your response to the New York Post story about your son, sir?
I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. Right up your alley. Those are the questions you always ask.
And did you...
Joe Biden finally responds. He says a smear campaign. Welcome to Newsmax TV, to Real America's Voice, now channel Dish Channel 219, also in Chicago Channel 113 on Comcast, and John Frederick's Radio Network on G News, G Media, and on our podcast with 16 million downloads. You're in War Room Pandemic in the War Room, Saturday, the 17th of September, the year of our Lord, 2020. I think we got 16 in a wake-up to Election Day, as the flag officers who signed the petition for President Trump said the most important election in the history of the Republic. Thank God it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. We got Rudy Giuliani, Mayor Giuliani, with us before he can start drinking, before he started drinking heavily, according to Michael Cohen. A great. Yeah, exactly. Get the mimosas. He's got a mimosa. That's what's going on. Okay,
Michael.
So
he's such a nice guy. I would
Mayor, here's what
I would consider him a
Mayor,
serial perjurer.
We were going to have, look, Ari Melber, MSNBC's got to go to the dredges where they got to go. Ari Melber, I think, is a pretty straight guy, but to let Cohen go on like that is, So here's what we got, Mayor. The cold open was going to have a lot more of the beatdown of you personally, but we wanted to put that, want to slip in, the defense of the Biden campaign, and they're kind of twofold, right? At first, they hid behind the mainstream media saying, oh, this is Russian influence. But Erin Burnett, the field hockey player from, I think, Williams College, right? The one who couldn't make it as a Goldman Sachs. She couldn't make it as a Goldman. Remember, when you go from Williams to Goldman Sachs as an analyst in the M&A department, you're supposed to go to Harvard Business School from there. If your GMATs are high enough, Aaron, if your GMATs are high enough. When you don't, that's a tell. No, she's doing the Russian misinformation where, oh yeah, they've got all the 25,000 photos, they got this, but what they did is they slipped in, one bad email. Well, that was blown up yesterday. Fox News went out and actually confirmed with people in the email chain these are correct emails. You saw further verification throughout the day. Got to remember, the New York Post has got the metadata. Rupert Murdoch and his team went through this with a fine-tooth comb. This thing has been verified 9 ways from Sunday. And the whole Russia hoax is all starting to crumble around them. And if that's your defense, and it crumbles, stand by for some heavy rolls, as we say in the destroyer Navy, because we're coming for you. There's so much more to come out on this. It's going to be unbelievable. And Biden last night, he didn't even do Russia. He just said it's a smear. How can it be a smear? It's just, have you denied, Joe Biden, any of these emails? Have you denied any of the text messages? Have you denied any of the photographs? How can it be a smear? It's just coming from your family, right? So, Rudy, here's what I want to go to, Mayor, today, is to talk about the special we have on for the next 2 hours. Is Joe Biden owned by the Chinese Communist Party? Look, we realize that Burisma is important. It set up the predicate initially that he lied. You've seen that he's lied now. But what's happened over the last 24 hours with Peter Schweitzer and his team, you've got other, we know it's mainstream media, some mainstream media, major reporting institutions, news institutions are coming out with more damning stories starting on Monday and Tuesday of next week. I think Ken Vogel of the New York Times has already tweeted out something. It's just a convergence now around their corruption and ownership by the Chinese Communist Party. Can you give us your perspective first of how deep and corrupt the Biden family is, and James Biden, and how up to their neck? You know, yesterday they had that when Fox News verified the email, the guy in the email chain told Fox News, hey, the 10% is definitely Joe Biden. So all the mainstream media sit there and go, well, there's no direct connection. There's a direct connection of an eyewitness on the email chain, told Fox News. They verified last night on the Bret Baier show, where Bret Baier was not, when I was on Maria yesterday morning, Bret Baier's 6 o'clock show the night before said, hey, this is all sketchy. Fox is now off that. They said they have absolute verification from somebody in the email chain. Not only was the email real, right, not from Russia, it was real, that, but not just that, but that the equity ownership splits. When they talked about the big guy, he says, oh yeah, that was Joe Biden, no doubt about it. So Rudy, talk about how the Chinese Communist Party works and how these influence operations, the campaign last night came out at, late at night and said, hey, Joe Biden's been compromised. That's a word we've been using for a couple of weeks here. He's been compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. Put your U.S. attorney's hat on when you ran the Southern District of New York before it was a corrupt political operation, according to Barr, headhunting Trump's political allies. Present company excluded. Present company excluded. Right. Talk to us about how deep is the Biden family compromised by the Chinese Communist Party?
They're owned by the Chinese Communist Party, Steve, and it's been quite a while. It's not new. Let me just add to the fact that it's verified. I did it myself. Now, Steve, I'm not an amateur at this. I put the about 200 mafia members in jail based on 4,000 hours of tape recordings. So I know how to do this. I also helped to establish the first FISA court, and I probably approved about 100 FISA wires myself. So I know what I'm doing. I have internally verified this about 3 different ways. And by the way, Hunter Biden verified it. Before this ever appeared publicly, when there was a call from, I think it probably was the Post, to the Biden family, immediately Hunter Biden's lawyer called the source and asked to have this hard drive back. So yes. Basically, that's an admission. The lawyer's an agent of we've never released those emails. We've never released those emails. We have, but we're holding those back of Hunter Biden's lawyer reaching out in desperation to get it back. We've held that back because we want to make sure they walk into the trap and then close it hard after. They've done it. I mean, they've done it. I mean, they've done exactly what we thought they would do. You put a little out, they deny it, you prove it's untrue. And now this time we got them about, well, if I was trying the case, 4 false exculpatory statements. Let me give you an idea of what they're going to be walking through. There are still about 18,000 texts and emails to go, and 24,826 photographs. I'm not going to say they're all incriminating, but there are plenty of them. For example, that whole situation with the 10%. You don't even need a witness to verify it, because what they don't know is following that email, about 3 later is an email in which they give out the keys to the new Chinese office. The first key is given out to Joe Biden. The second key is given out to Jill Biden.
Now, what are they doing with offices in a business that's half owned with their son, their brother, their sister-in-law? What are they doing in that office if they don't have an interest in it? Let's make sure, the memo says, that Joe and Jill get the first keys. And then it says 10% for the big guy. I don't know. If I try in that case, I put those two things together, I think a jury comes to the conclusion it's Joe Biden. And if there's an eyewitness, if there's a witness, well, then I don't know, about time to plead guilty, I think. The fact is, he's asking to be president of the United States, and he was a partner as recently as a year ago with the Chinese Communist government of China. And his family has gotten, I can count, about $30 million in the last 4 years from the Chinese Communist government. His son was in partnership with
the $30 million, but that also tees up a partnership that could be hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. That partnership, the equity splits, means a much bigger participation.
Oh, without any doubt about it. I mean, there are Ukrainian prosecutors who our embassy is not allowing to come to the United States, who are willing to testify that Biden has offshore accounts. And they have not been able to get the cooperation of the United States government to discover those offshore accounts. There are 5 other witnesses in Ukraine that our embassy, present embassy, is refusing to give a visa to, who will testify that Biden was bribed by Mykola Zlochevsky, offered upwards of $20 million, paid through his son, in order to fix Zlochevsky's case, to get him out of trouble in Ukraine. So what Hunter Biden really is a bag man. It's a very typical scheme of which I've prosecuted many and so have others. The money goes to Hunter, James, Sarah, Frank, a few others. Then
why has James? Why have James and Frank not gotten? We're going to make them famous, but why have they not gotten? We've got about a minute to the break, Mayor. But why have James and Frank never been? Particularly James, why have they never been highlighted? Why has the media never really exposed all their corruption and really influence peddling?
They actually have in much earlier stories, going back to the 90s. There were stories, I'd say maybe half a dozen of them, that James was a crooked lobbyist, that he would tell people that he could get his brother's influence. And then when the stories appeared, Joe would answer and say, I don't know anything about my family's business. And the compliant media would go away. But if somebody had investigated it then, this would not have happened. In other words, if Joe, it's almost like the broken windows theory. If we had gotten Joe at an early stage where he was making a few grand by selling out to lobbyists, and everybody knew he was doing it. I mean, he was lobbying against an amendment to the bankruptcy bill that every Democrat was in favor of because it helped poor people. And he was doing it because his son had a no-show job with the biggest bank in Delaware. Everybody knew that. I mean, if they had gone ahead and prosecuted them, we wouldn't have had this problem now. But he's been a crook all his life.
Mayor, we're going to take a short commercial break to pay for the show, and then we're going to come back with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani's been the tip of the spear in this investigation because the mainstream media wouldn't do it, FBI wouldn't do it, law enforcement wouldn't do it. Mayor Giuliani is doing it. So it's a version of Butch Cassidy in The Sundance Kid. I'm playing wingman to the greatest prosecutor New York City's ever had. Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Okay, we'll return in a second. War Room Pandemic. Hashtag War Room Pandemic in the live stream. Let us know what you think.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So what we see is that Joe Biden is an active participant, but even more disturbing is there is evidence that that this had an impact. It warped America's foreign policy, and we know that happened in China and Ukraine. And in China, you know, basically, Joe Biden was a point man for Obama, for America. He went easy on China. He went easy on China militarizing the South China Sea. He went easy on China ripping off America's intellectual property. In every way, China did well, America lost out, and the Biden family enriched themselves to the tune of millions and millions of dollars.
Where have we heard that before from? That's Miranda Devine, the columnist that's contextualizing the emails and text messages that are so damning to the Bidens, and been unable for the Biden campaign to respond. They haven't denied any of this, quite frankly. Just say it's a smear. They got their running dogs in the mainstream media and social media trying to suppress the information or say it's Russian intelligence. Guess what? It's not. That defense is blowing up even. And once you get past that defense, you're done because you got nothing else to do. And we're going to run the tables on you. Miranda Devine talking about the Biden family winning and America losing. Rudy Giuliani's been talking about that. I want to bring the mayor back here. We only got him for a few more minutes. He's in demand, as we say. He's hot.
I can stay longer.
Rudy's hot right now. Okay,
I can
great.
stay longer,
That's good. Okay, Mayor, that's good. We'll take
free
it.
of my
Listen,
next
you
obligation.
you said good producer over there. You got the Saturday shift over there. It's a lot more focused than your weekday shift. Just saying. I want a definite upgrade. I want to get back to this concept. You know, today shows a special. It's the CCP's ownership of Joe Biden. Remember, President Obama, the fire-breathing anti-war populist, that the Democratic Party and the ownership of the Democratic Party by Wall Street and the corporations took the senator from Wilmington, Delaware, the concierge to the big global corporations, not Joe from Scranton. That's totally phony. He's not a populist. He's not an economic nationalist. That's totally phony. He sold working class people out all over. Okay? It is Mayor Rudy Giuliani that has brought up the fact that everywhere you see Joe Biden go, the Bidens win and America loses. And particularly where it's really brought to a highlight is with the Chinese Communist Party. Here, we now know that over his entire time as I think the Breitbart emails and the Schweitzer emails go back to 2011. So the entire Obama administration, now up to the present day, so for 10 years, they've had a deep financial relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. For a decade, mainstream media, for a decade. These are emails, affidavits. You have affidavits of guys who are involved in the plot back in 2011, 2012. Mainstream media sources are going to come out this week with brutal stories that have affidavits and other emails. You guys are beclowning yourself by this Russia nonsense. You don't think Rupert Murdoch, with $80 billion of market capitalization, the toughest lawyers in the world, that has been through a few lawsuits in his time, hasn't gone through and checked the metadata and know this is all real? Yeah. Okay? So you're this whole thing about having Clapper and these other people, and by the way, Clapper, Comey, Brennan, you're all going to be held. Adam Schiff last night, smack talking us. Adam Schiff, your committee 2 weeks ago came out and said you haven't done, the American intelligence apparatus has failed on the Chinese Communist Party. The most significant enemy we've ever had in the history of this country, the Chinese Communist Party. Always remember, the liberation of the Chinese people is going to be the defining story of the first half of the 20th century. I've said this forever. The liberation of Lao Beijing, the liberation of the little guy in China. And this is who the Bidens stole the money from. The Bidens stole the money from equivalent to the people in Scranton, the deplorables, from China. It's the Chinese Communist Party that steals their money, that steals their value, right? And then money launders it and funnels it back to real estate in the Belgravia, the West End of London, and in Midtown Manhattan, okay? And they do it through useful idiots and running dogs like the Biden family, and they're guilty. They're guilty. They're owned by the Chinese Communist Party. Finally, the campaign came out and said it last night. Joe Biden's compromised. He's a national security problem. He could not get a confidential security clearance today. He wants to be commander-in-chief, and he's totally compromised. He's a national security issue. I want to now turn to Mayor Giuliani. First, before we go to Biden wins and America loses, you're an expert. This far, if you look at the Peter Schweitzer story from yesterday, and I think other organizations are coming out with more of this, there looks to me to be a dozen FARA violations. Paul Manafort's in prison right now for unregistered foreign agent that they kind of cooked up about him in the Ukraine after they went through everything that the guy's ever done in his entire life just to make sure to try to get him to roll on President Trump. the Biden families? Hunter Biden should be indicted today. James Biden should be indicted today, Southern District of New York, right? If you can take a break from Trump's political allies and focus on real crimes, what do you look at, Mayor? You used to run the Southern District of New York back when there were patriots there, not left-wing progressives. Okay, what is? And by the way, you notice Southern District of New York, you didn't shut me up. Note to self, write that down. Take your number 2 pencil. Did not shut me up. Okay, sorry, not sorry. Mayor, talk to us about all these things you're seeing coming out right now. These FARA violations.
So the FARA violations, you actually don't even need witnesses for. They're basically right here. I can't show you the actual thing, but if I put it on, they're right here in the Hunter Biden computer. He basically was representing a foreign government with the State Department and the White House. You must register. Now, normally they didn't used to prosecute these cases, but Manafort, they came down on him, and remember they raided his house like he was a mafia king, and he only had a few of them. I mean, this kid, he's not a kid anymore, but whatever he is, this Hunter Biden and his partner Devin Archer are serial FARA violators. I can count alone about 6 of them. I had them all from anonymous sources before I had the email. So, for example, he has a meeting with Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken. There's a witness to that, an anonymous source. He gave me the exact date of the meeting, and he remembered it because Hunter Biden was brought in the back door, and they didn't make a record of it. He gave me that date. I wrote it down, so did John Solomon for that matter. And then when I got the computer, there it is right on this computer. That's another way in which we verified it. The computer has about...
Why would they, but Mayor, why would they bring him into a back door? Why wouldn't he just go through the lobby of the State Department, log in?
Because he would have to register, and way back in 2015, we would have figured out that he was doing illegal work for Burisma. So they wanted to keep it, I mean, very similar to why they didn't register the representative of Burisma that went to visit Vice President Biden. Now, the Biden camp now has amended what they said. They said there could have been a meeting, maybe a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, something like that, but there was no official meeting. So it's already our strategy.
But this is a huge. But Mayor, this is a huge reveal that the mainstream media hadn't picked up. Go back and say what was in the New York Post yesterday. What has the Biden campaign said?
The Biden campaign originally said no meeting. Then they said there's no meeting on the public record. The minute you tell me no meeting on the public record, as a prosecutor, I realized there's a meeting. And then eventually they were forced to say, not that there was a meeting, but there might have been a meeting like outside the office. And I think they said maybe a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Could have been vodka too, who knows? And the reality is, guys don't work so hard. We have a witness to the meeting as well as this. We know, just informing the Biden people, that we know the meeting took place from an actual witness who knows about the fact you brought him in the back door to see Tony Blinken. There's a second meeting with Blinken. Maybe somebody should bring him in front of the grand jury. I mean, the fact is there are provable FARA violations right on this computer, plus 2 or 3 witnesses that can establish it. And if you're going to put Manafort in jail for it, you got to put these birds in jail for it too. It's as much a crime for them. I mean, Democrats don't get to violate FARA, but only Republicans do. And also, you can stop investigating me for FARA because I never did it. The Democrats have a thing where they project, right? They accuse Donald Trump of colluding with Russia. He wasn't, but they're colluding with Russia, right? They accuse us of FARA violations, but actually they're doing it. I always made sure in my contracts I had a clause, no representation of foreign governments. Apparently, you know, Democrats don't get investigated for this.
Mayor, can we?
But that's the least of his crimes. Honestly, Steve, it's the least of his crimes. I mean, I consider FARA chicken shit. as a prosecutor who put mafia and terrorists in jail. This is a RICO case.
All I want to do, I want to set the predicate up. We're gonna get to the RICO case now that you can stay with us a little longer. We're gonna take a short commercial break. We're going to come back with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani used RICO not just to put the 5 families away, the 5 mafia families. He then put Wall Street away. He then put Ivan Boesky, Mike Milken, the entire clique on Wall Street back in the 80s. If you remember the movie Wall Street, it was Rudy Giuliani, the crusader, who put him away. And he's on another crusade. The crusade right now is to expose the Biden crime family and their ownership by the Chinese Communist Party. Remember, always keep your eye on the main thing. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. If you haven't seen the method that's working here, we put out some information, let them lie about it, and then come back with more information. Write this down, Biden campaign. We're coming for you next on War Room Pandemic.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
But it was very unfair that Sleepy Joe, who cannot answer a question, he really can't answer a question. Well, Chris Wallace protected him with me. I talked about the Moscow $3.5 million payment. I talked about the $1 billion. Chris Wallace wouldn't he said, no, that's not appropriate. Why? You mean the guy's allowed to take $3.5 million and we're not allowed to talk to him about it? I'm telling you, that Biden family and others, but that Biden family is corrupt. It's a corrupt family. And with me and my kids, let me tell you, my kids, I'll tell you something, though. It's very, lock them up. You shouldn't lock them up. Lock up the Bidens. Lock up Hillary. Lock them up. Can you imagine if my kids did what this guy Hunter is doing?
Well, we know that this whole smear on Joe Biden comes from the Kremlin. That's been clear for well over a year now, that they've been pushing this false narrative about the vice president and his son. And, you know, the idea that the president, that the White House counsel and others were made aware that Giuliani was being used by Russian intelligence and using Russian intelligence in the sense of meeting with an agent of the Kremlin and pushing out this Kremlin false narrative. The idea that they were knowing and still on the floor of the Senate during the impeachment trial, pushing this Kremlin narrative is pretty breathtaking. But I guess at this point, we can't be shocked by anything this administration does, no matter how craven. But clearly, the origins of this whole smear are from the Kremlin, and the president is only too happy to have Kremlin help in trying to amplify it.
This is not a smear, Shifty Shift. Go back and read your House Intelligence Report about how the intelligence communities collapsed about the Chinese Communist Party. Stephen K. Bannon back on the John Fredericks Radio Network on Real America's Voice, Dish Channel 219, 113 in Chicago, also on Newsmax TV, blown out everywhere in the world on G News, GTV in Mandarin, and of course over 16 million downloads on our podcast already. We're ubiquitous, big, and we're ornery. Shift. This comes directly from the hard drive, okay, brother? This is just his drug addict son. If you want to see what a drug addict is, go to the New York Post actually did a fairly empathetic story yesterday. But you got Hunter Biden, empathetic about Joe Biden, Hunter, and his drug problem, everything like that. But go to they got the photographs. They got meth mouth, Hunter Biden and meth mouth. That's what you're dealing with, right? You're dealing with a drug addict that is easily compromised by foreign intelligence sources. Adam Schiff, you should start an investigation immediately on the Biden's family's ownership by the Chinese Communist Party. Stop with the Russian nonsense. It's a sideshow to a sideshow. I keep saying this. Russia's in a demographic death spiral. They don't make one thing the world wants, not one thing, okay, except natural gas that our allies in Germany suck up, okay? They have a lot of nuclear weapons and a lot of bad guys. It's run by a kleptocracy, and Putin and the KGB guys are bad hombres, right? But it's the size of New York State, its economy, and in a downward death spiral.
The Chinese Communist Party is an existential threat to the people of China, the citizens of China, to Lao Beijing, the deplorables of China. They're a threat to the United States of America and to humanity. Where do we think mainstream media, the play, came from? The thing that you're so hysterical about, the thing that you've traumatized the Democratic base about, so that now they can't even go out to vote. They all want to vote by mail. And the next fiasco you brought on us, right, because of the hysteria of the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP virus, all crickets. Well, it's not crickets with us. We're driving the narrative. We've changed the whole center of gravity. And this is, too, before I bring back in Mayor Giuliani, Tony Blinken, Kurt Campbell, Jake Sullivan, you guys have all these great aspirations. You're going to be Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, National Security Advisor. You must come clean today. What did you know and when did you know it? What did you know and when did you know it about the corruption of the Biden family, their ownership of the Chinese Communist Party, and the meetings you took? Okay? Jake Sullivan told people after the 2016 campaign, he said, hey, you know what? Bannon actually had it right. We actually thought, we believed in the Thucydides trap, that we're the declining power and they're the rising power. We made a fundamental mistake. Yes, you did, Jake Sullivan. But you made bigger mistakes than that. And Tony Blinken, you're never going to be Secretary of State. You're never going to be Secretary of Defense. Let me say this and write it down on the 17th of October. Biden's not going to win. But even if he did win, you're unconfirmable, sir. You're going to be in front of a grand jury on the far violations of the Biden family when James Biden and Hunter Biden, when they really, SDNY really gets some indictments here and they go to prison, like Manafort's gone to prison on FAR violations. I agree with the mayor. Those are low-level things, but you see the consistency. What they're doing is selling access to Joe Biden. Access to Joe Biden for cash money. And now you see in the joint ventures is actually getting bigger. When Joe Biden's getting ready to run for President of the United States, then they stop the cash money and they get into equity splits where they're actually going to have big-time ownership. Verified yesterday, Adam Schiff, in your Russian operation, guys on the email, people that work at the consulting firms that are with the Bidens, confirmed the emails, and they confirmed the equity splits. So Adam Schiff, where's your hearing on Monday about what your committee, not the minority report put out by the Republicans, but your committee put out a couple of weeks ago, a damning report on Brennan, on Clapper, on Hayden, on Comey, on all of them. They looked the other way when the greatest threat in the history of this country was influence peddling and money laundering and buying off Wall Street, buying off the corporations, buying off the political class. Don't think this is not going to all be brought out. It's all going to be brought out, and you're going to be condemned by history. Tony Blinken, you're unconfirmable. You may actually be indicted, but you're definitely unconfirmable. So look, you're not going to have a big gig. So now it's time for Jake Sullivan, Kurt Campbell, all the guys are telling Wall Street, and this is what they're telling Wall Street right now. We're going to run the tables on Trump. We're going to take over the Senate. We're going to recouple. We're going to go back to the old days. And there's no chance we're going back to the old days. That's not going to happen, okay? People in the United States now know the Chinese Communist Party is an existential threat to humanity. They're guilty of genocide. Over 1 million innocent people throughout this world have died because of their virus. Right? Died because of their virus that came from the P4 lab in Wuhan. Whether it was a gain-of-function experiment gone awry that leaked out or part of a biological weapons program is kind of beside the point. That's for their other guilt. We know that they made this. We know that they exacerbated its travel throughout the world. And what has Joe Biden done? Because he's owned by the Chinese Communist Party. When President Trump shuts down travel, what does Biden do? He sits there and takes the Beijing line. Trump's a racist. Trump's a nativist. Come on, man. They're not a competitor. Mayor Giuliani, I'm sorry going on my diatribe, but I want to go to you. You're the expert. You put Milken away. You put Wall Street away. You put the five families and broke the mafias of RICO. What is the RICO investigation that we're running right now on the Biden crime family?
Of it, okay? First of all, you gotta pay attention to the title point man. He's appointed point man 4 times. Every time he's appointed point man, the U.S. loses and the Biden family makes millions. So watch it. This is the Biden crime family, at least a brief synopsis of it. So he's appointed point man in Iraq. He goes to Iraq, and he's supposed to negotiate a status of forces agreement so that we can remain in Iraq to protect our interests there. Of course, Joe, as he always does, fails in the negotiations miserably. But his brother somehow becomes a partner in a $1.5 billion housing deal. He knows nothing about housing, just like Hunter knows nothing about energy. But somehow he becomes a one-third partner in a $1.5 billion housing deal. That's Iraq. Ukraine, we've already talked about. He's the bag man. Hunter is the bag man. He's collecting Joe's bribe, which is somewhere between $12 and $20 million. Let's be conservative, $12 million. Some of it, the $2 million a year the firm got, some of it a laundered payment of $3.2 million that we have the document for, that went through Cyprus and Latvia. It didn't come from Russia. It came from Latvia and Cyprus. None of this came from Russia, not a single thing. And then we move on to Russia, where he got the 3.5 to 4 million from the widow of the mayor of Russia, who is a very close associate of Vladimir Putin. So all that Democratic talk about how Trump and Putin are very close, Trump never got any money from Putin. Biden did. I mean, it's ridiculous, Steve. They charge you or me or Trump with what they do, and they get the corrupt press to buy it. And the final coup de grace. I mean, the big money comes from China. We've only begun with China, and we've done 2 transactions that we've gone through in detail. One of them is the private equity firm in which China is a partner, a 1/4 partner. Who are the other partners? Hunter Biden, the stepson of John Kerry, the then Secretary of State, and Whitey Bulger's nephew, James Bulger. I mean, you can't believe that, right? I mean, that's totally ridiculous. Also, you can't believe that could happen while Biden was negotiating for the United States, being criticized for being so weak. Again, America loses. He was supposed to get them out of the islands they were disputing with Japan. Instead, China reinforces the military there, raises tariffs. Joe miserably fails on his trip to China, but he brought his son along with him, the drug-addicted Hunter. And Hunter won. Even though he's drug-addicted, he got a letter about 6 days later committing $1 billion to a virtually useless private equity firm. You know from your days in finance, Steve, getting a $1 billion commitment? I mean, that's extraordinary for a fund without a history. Impossible. And then China puts another $5 billion in. So while Joe is negotiating for the U.S. and for Japan on a highly sensitive national security matter, his son has become a partner with the government of China. So that's what I mean by America loses, the Biden family wins. And by the way, when I say his son was a partner, no. Joe Biden was a partner, because one of the texts that we have, and this is the one that I probably think is really the nail in the coffin. This is the one that makes the obvious provable. The obvious is this money's going to Joe Biden. Nobody is paying a drug addict $30 million. No Ukrainian oligarch, who's considered to be one of the most dangerous and crooked men in Ukraine, is paying useless money to a drug addict. I'm going to show you 2 pictures, which are 2 of many.
Mayor, hang on 1 second. We're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to turn to let you go through all of it. Okay, hashtag war and pandemic, the live stream. It's on fire this morning. This is the CCP's ownership of Joe Biden, the Biden corruption scandal, and what Joe Biden did in looking the other way and going soft on the Chinese Communist Party when he was in charge of the pivot to Asia. We're going to return in a moment. Hashtag war and pandemic, the live stream. We've got Jack Maxey. Eventually, in the next hour, we've got Jack Posobiec. We've got Dr. Bradley Thayer. We have Jana
Bianco from the American Bond Foundation. We're spending the entire 2 hours on Joe Biden's ownership by the Chinese Communist Party. We will return with Mayor Rudy Giuliani in a moment.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back. It's the CCP's ownership of Joe Biden. It's pretty substantial. Make sure we know the Biden campaign is watching. There's a lot more to come. And just remember, every time something comes out and you lie about it or you hide behind the Russia coverage, additional information is going to come out and prove you're liars. So for Tony Blinken and all you guys seeing your careers go up in ashes, just remember, there's evidence, emails, text messages, a lot more to come, and not just from the hard drive. There's stuff coming out all over, affidavits, other things from other news organizations. You're going to be buried in an avalanche of evidence of your corruption and how you've sold out America. You sold out America to the equivalent of the Nazi Party in the 1930s. That's what the Chinese Communist Party is. This is not about China. It's not about the Chinese people. The Chinese people are totally innocent here. Most decent, hardworking people on earth. It is their liberation that's the defining aspect of the first half of the 21st century. And you have been complicit in their slavery. You have stolen their money to make yourselves wealthier. Joe Biden and his family and Blinken and Sullivan and you guys are caught up in it too, okay? You have stolen the money from the hardest working people on earth that are enslaved by this totalitarian dictatorship that breaks the underground house Christians, breaks the underground Catholic Church, suppresses the Tibetan Buddhists, puts concentration camps with the Muslim Uyghurs. You have taken blood money, to go out and you, Hunter Biden, to do your drugs and all your depravity, well, it's all going to come out in living color, okay? All going to come out in living color. That money, sir, was stolen from the Chinese people in slave labor. Remember that, stolen from them. Mayor Giuliani, what is the story with the FBI? The FBI has been running, about Bernie Sanders should be the nominee because the FBI had this hard drive back in November, December of 2019, before there had been no impeachment. Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee. They were pulling guards and had interference for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and they'd done the exact same thing for another Wall Street-owned Democrat here. What is the story with Ray? Isn't he a Christie guy? Isn't this another disaster of Chris Christie? Chris Christie, who's dumping all over the president about his debate preparation, dumping all over the president about his debate performance, dumping all over the president about the safeguards of the thing. You know, Chris Christie, the Judas, right? Chris Christie. Another Ray's a guy, Berman's a guy. They're all Chris Christie recommendations, right? That stupid, idiotic Republican mafia from New Jersey. They're all a bunch of idiots. Everything he touches turns out to be a disaster. Just like I shoved him out of the 2016 campaign. The guy's nothing but bad news, bad information, doesn't know what he's doing. What's the story with Chris Wray? Why is Chris Wray not in the Oval Office today being fired?
Well, I'm not sure I can't agree to all the things about Chris Christie. He's a good friend of mine. But I can tell you that if he recommended Chris Wray or whoever did, it was a terrible recommendation. Chris Wray has been sitting on information that would have made the entire impeachment probe unnecessary. So this is the most recent. All you have to do is take a quick look at this, like the gentleman who had it did, and the crimes just jump off the page. And why the FBI held it for 7-8 months and did nothing with it. There is even the possibility that there are some people revealed that are in danger here who aren't taken care of by the FBI who had this. Also, you have the Bannon situation where he had that letter from Bannon that made it clear that Hillary invented the Russian collusion that cost us $40 million to investigate. If that had been revealed at the time, or when Ray came in, if it had been revealed when he came in, we could have cut off all that phony impeachment stuff, and we could have actually prosecuted guys like Shifty Schiff for lying. You remember, like he's saying now, Shifty Schiff got up and said, I have direct evidence of Donald Trump being involved directly with Putin and the Russians. Well, of course, he was just lying. but the media doesn't care. Now, here, the other question I raise is, why didn't our intelligence services know about this kind of situation back when it was happening? Biden's son was a national security threat to the United States from the moment he started fooling around with the Ukrainians, much less with the Chinese communists. I mean, here's a picture of him. There's a picture of him. It's probably hard to see. But that's him, and it looks like a bedroom or a bathroom using a crack pipe and trying to be in a confined area so he can get the greatest benefit out of the crack smoke. By the way, I prosecuted probably 500 crack cases. Crack became popular just when I became U.S. attorney, and I got it out of Washington Heights. That's crack. That's Biden. If I have it, the Chinese have it. You know that, Steve, right? And this, you can take this and you can show it to Daddy and say, Daddy, you want everybody to see this? I mean, you just said he was a good boy in the debate with Trump. I don't know. This doesn't look like a good boy. Here's one that's really, really hard to see, but I can see it. Here's another one. Looks like he's in a crack den here. So there are about 50 of these on here. Now I don't like that. I feel very, very bad for people who are drug addicts. I've helped rehabilitate a number of them. I helped aid in the rehabilitation of a number of them. I actually blame Joe Biden for this. Why would you have your son, who's been a crack addict almost continuously since he got thrown out of the Navy for it, why would you put him in a situation to be with some of the crookedest people in the world? Are you so greedy? You're so greedy, you know, you need those millions so bad, you imperil the life of your son? What do you think is going to happen to a crack addict if you put him in a situation like that? Why do you think he kept going back to rehabilitation, Joe? Because you and your greedy brother put him in the middle so he could be the bag man. I mean, this is horrible. I mean,
Mayor, we got to bounce. You've done an amazing job. The attacks on you have been relentless, but I got to tell you, you're an American hero. And Biden ought to understand. Biden got to understand. You got 2 honey badgers coming for you. Impossible to stop this. Impossible to stop what's coming. Plenty more, and it's going to engulf you. Here's the thing you notice: the Biden campaign is soft. They've never really had to defend themselves or Joe Biden's. The mainstream media has been a Praetorian Guard. Mayor Giuliani, thank you so much. I know you got a busy day. I'll see you later in the day. Fantastic, great patriot. Glad you stayed off the mimosas for the broadcast.